Hi everyone, this is Darian again. It's July 26th. I'm from Superdot Studio and welcome to the 33rd edition of On Data and Design. Today's topic is visual journalism. And as always, there are three very interesting speakers. And today's speakers are Irene de la Torre from the Financial Times. She will be our first speaker. We have a second speaker who is Jonas Oesch, and Jonas is from the NZZ. And we will have our third speaker, who is Marco Hernandez, and he's from the New York Times. He's not yet here with us. He has because there is a time shift. He's in New York. He will join us. I hope we will manage to do that in the middle of the talks. Speaking of, there will be 3 talks today of each 20 minutes. So each of the speakers will have 20 minutes for their talk. Feel free to ask questions over Slido. The Slido link is below in the YouTube description. So please also upvote questions that you think that they are relevant and you would like them to be answered in the discussion round. The discussion round will take place after the 3 talks, so after 60 minutes. We'll get to the discussion. It will last about, the discussion will last about 30 minutes maybe, and then we're done. And yeah, and I would say now we can already come to the first talk. Irene, are you ready?
I think so.
So
Let's see.
we can then just, Jonas. Yeah, okay, good. So Jonas, we will come back later, and here are your slides. And we can immediately start.
Cool. Well, hello everybody. Thank you all for having me. I'm so excited to be talking today. I'm a huge fan of On Data and Design, so I'm a little bit nervous. Let's see how this goes. So my name is Irene de la Torre. I'm a digital designer at the Financial Times. I'm part of the visual storytelling team. As you can notice from my accent, I'm Spanish. My background is in journalism, and I really love database. For people who are not familiarized with visual journalism and news, our projects tend to be different from traditional news stories. They don't follow the inverted pyramid model, where you start with the key facts and then include background information. Instead, a successful visual storytelling project needs visuals to drive its narrative. We need data, we need images, we need videos, or even the maps. We mix computational tools and traditional reporting to produce investigations and stories in visual formats. And we tend to do 2 types of projects. Stories that use visuals as evidence to reveal something new. They are usually visual investigations, or stories that explain complex or abstract topics through visuals. And the idea is that both of them help readers understand the world a little bit better, and they have a better and clearer idea of what's happening. When I was thinking about what to talk about in today's meetup, it's like I have no idea which project should I bring, and I kind of have the feeling that I've just been plotting dots on the screen and making them move. I actually had a conversation with my colleague Lucy Rogers a few weeks ago. So I kind of checked all the projects that we've done this year so far, and also in 2025. And as you can see, 2026 has been quite dark in comparison. I find it very metaphorical for what is happening everywhere. And also my curiosity took the best of me, and I checked, well, which ones have dots moving on the screens? And usually we use this technique to track things that move, like trucks, flights and vessels. There's a lot of projects. There has been a lot of projects tracking boats. And actually the two topics that I'm going to talk about today, or the two projects that I'm going to bring today, track movements of boats in the sea. One is from 2025 and the other one is from 2026. And both of them, what they do is they use storytelling techniques to explain complex geopolitical dynamics, and both deal with, obviously, geographical stories, where maps are essential to explain what's happening and to explain the relationship between different countries, for example. I'll focus on how spatial data, color, and narrative flow make complex topics accessible and hopefully responsibly designed. But before I start, I need to kind of bring the elephant into the room. That expression is wrong, but you get the drill. Maps not only explain wars, boundaries, and power, they also kind of frame what's happening in the world. They tell us a specific view, and they talk about power and politics. And we use them because they provide a spatial structure that enhances our storytelling experience and help us anchor in the story. But it's true that we always have to think about this, and because the moment we use specific colors, people understand relationships in a different way, or the projections that we use already kind of transmit a specific information. So the first project is about the sabotages in the Baltic Sea. It's called Inside Russia's Shadow War in the Baltics. We published it in March 2025, and it investigated suspected sabotage of undersea cables and pipelines in the Baltic Sea, an event that crossed borders, and interestingly, there were no confirmed actors. So we kind of guess who is responsible, but there's no confirmation that that's actually the case. Our goal was to inform readers about serious incidents while keeping a very analytical and dissecting tone. And the project visualized 5 key factors: the geography of the Baltic Sea, the sea bathymetry, undersea infrastructure, marine traffic, and maritime jurisdictions. The Baltic Sea is a busy, shallow region. Many countries rely on it for communication and energy. That geography makes it very vulnerable. You can, by mistake, drag anchors that can damage this infrastructure. And because it's really hard because there's a lot of boats and it's kind of easy to have an accident, attribution is very difficult. By early 2025, there had been 11 incidents in 17 months, which made it quite surprising, let's just say. Sovereignty here is also very complicated. There are a lot of countries and very close together, and these countries also use it to get out to the Atlantic Sea, so to the Atlantic Ocean. So we needed very precise data on boundaries and exclusive economic zones. If the moment we kind of scale into and zoom into the map, we really needed precise information on the EEZ and the international waters, because one of the incidents happened between the international waters of Finland and Estonia in an area that's called exclusive economic zone. So the law is a tiny bit different. It's a bit different than if you're in the territorial waters of a country. And this area that you see is what Russia basically uses to go to the Atlantic. So the shapefiles that are available online, they are generalizations, and they work really well when you are using very scale out or zoom out scales. It didn't work that well with this specific map, so we had to find the official treaty between Finland and Estonia to properly represent it. And that's where, as you see by the pink rectangle, that's where one of the incidents happened, which is the one that you're going to see now. We also got data from marine traffic, and we use it to represent 3 incidents. When animated, clear patterns emerge. The ships slow down and did weird movements really close to the cables, as you can see here at some point. So the white lines are the cables that are in this area and that were kind of crossed by this vessel. There's open source data about representing communication cables and and cables that transport gas, etc. But they are usually generalizations. They are used for people to understand how interconnected we are and how many cables there are undersea. But their precisions are not real. They are designed so that you see how many cables there are in the world. But the thing is that if we use that data, these movements that you just saw didn't happen in time. So we needed real information, real position of the cables, so that you could see exactly when the boats were crossing the cables and were doing weird things. This same data powered several visuals. The scrolling map that you saw, which we use for introducing the conflict, a vessel tracking animation, that is the scrolling that you also saw. And then there were also 4 multimedia pieces showing ships linked to Russia. Icons and highlights showed when vessels slowed or cables broke. We reduced clutter, showing only what mattered for the story, so readers could follow the events step by step so that they weren't confusing. It's one of the projects that has the most kind of, I don't want to use alarming tone, but the colors are very bright and the pink is very pink, and there's a slight alarming tone, I guess. The bright pink marked sabotage sites. We use light blue for NATO, yellow for infrastructure, white for Russia, since its involvement is not proven, and gray for background. We needed very bright colors that had a lot of contrast with the background, because the shapes were very tiny and we wanted to be fully accessible. So we needed very high contrast, and also the colors needed to pass color blindness. So if you're a viewer with a color blindness, you should be able to see the project and understand everything without any issue. I also, I always like showing the Fit Jam. This project was a collaboration between 7 people. So Figma and FigJam are great tools for working together, making changes, testing ideas. The file always looks cleaner on a screenshot than what the reality was, but it's nice. And here is the final piece. Like many visual storytelling projects, this article began with a topper, which is a visual component that introduces a story, sets the tone, and captures readers' interest. The story also includes satellite imagery, technical illustrations, and additional maps that highlight different aspects of the story. Consistency in color, tone, and typography also demanded meticulous attention to detail. The idea is that the reader doesn't notice that we are using different tools, different software to produce the visuals. It doesn't matter if it's created in D3 or if it's created in Illustrator. Everything should feel cohesive and part of the same project. These are the other 2 sabotage incidents. These 2 vessels are known to be spy boats or spy vessels for Russia, Russian spy ships, sorry. And And that it's interesting, right? So, and this is linked to the next project. You can see the boat moving when they have their AIS sensor on, but sometimes they disappear because they hide their position. And that's what actually happened in the following project. So a year later, Russia's shadow fleet not only is involved in sabotaging cables, it also becomes key to transporting sanctioned oil from Russia, Venezuela, and Iran. We started working on this project in February this year. We were going to publish it in February. We were going to publish it in March 2nd. And then on February 28th, the United States and Israel launched an attack on Iran. So we had to push the publication date because within a few hours, the project was completely outdated. We wrote it again. We were about to publish it. Something else happened. And then on the third time, we managed to publish it. And the result is a piece that focuses more on Iranian vessels than the whole shadow fleet. But it's a really good example of how the pace of the news this year has changed and become much faster. It's almost like you're reacting to what's happening instead of thinking about what might happen and get it ready and setting the agenda yourself. We wanted to show real cases of shadow fleet vessels manipulating their AIS signal. By law, they must always have it on, but sometimes, as I said, they hide it. So it was really important to have different designs for when the AIS is on and when it was off. And also it was really important to include satellite imagery so that we could show that these vessels were actually hiding their position and lying. We also wanted to convey the deteriorated condition of these vessels. They are very old ships, often in poor condition, and in many cases they can cause accidents. A key element of the presentation was showing unusual vessel behavior, and to do this, we obtained the AIS positions that they had transmitted, and this is the boat saying, "I'm here," and then this is the boat saying, "disappearing." And we needed the satellite imagery to show where they actually were. And once you start checking on these vessels or these ships, it's just so interesting, right? So some of them, they send their position, their AIS, and then you plot the points in QGIS, and they have the weirdest geometrical movements, which kind of indicates that it is impossible that the boat moves like that. So, and then when you check the satellite imagery, you notice, well, they are not actually waiting to enter Hormuz. They are in Kar Island, kind of getting oil. Some other times, they like hiding who they are. So if they get sanctioned, they try kind of having a refresh, I guess. And they try that by changing their names, changing their flag, and also getting different painting, because it's really hard to identify these ships with satellite imagery, but you can make people's life harder if you change the color, right? Because you're expecting to see a specific visual cues. And then if you also use satellite imagery, you can see these ships doing ship-to-ship transfers, because the moment sanctioned oil gets mixed with other oil, it's really hard to track. We also wanted to explain how this shadow fleet is formed and the different categorization. There are many gray areas. Some vessels can transport sanctioned oil. Some vessels are sanctioned. Some vessels are sanctioned by the European Union, the UK, and the United States. When that happens, they usually just go stateless, and some other times they change flags again. So the first time that we wrote the article, The pattern was for these ships to become stateless, which means that they cannot have an insurance. And by the time we started publishing it, the pattern was to kind of change the flag to Russia, because if you're a stateless vessel, you can be stopped in just in the water and international waters of a country. But if you have the Russian flag, you cannot be stopped. The style aimed to convey a toxic feeling. These ships should not be in the water, convey that their activity is illegal and that there is therefore a certain level of secrecy surrounding them. And again, maintain a restrained design without making it feel cluttered. This is the Figma. It took us a really long time to find the right way of explaining the categorization and doing the V-swarm. This is the final Figma, much cleaner than it was. And then this is the final piece. Both projects show how maps, when designed carefully, can explain complex geopolitical dynamics without oversimplifying or taking sides. They also show how design, data, and journalism come together to explore new ways of telling stories. Maps are powerful tools. They don't just explain the world, they shape how we see it. And as designers, we're responsible for that framing, and we should be asking ourselves the same question when we start working on a project. How can we visualize global tensions clearly without reinforcing them? And I'm going to wait until the scroll finishes and for you to see the project and then say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. That's super nice. Was very interesting, and also the Figma jam boards. That's the inside is very interesting too. Super. So we will move on to our next speaker. For everyone, if you have questions, please write them on Slido. The questions are, the link is below in the YouTube description. Also, a wonderful, it's so wonderful to look at YouTube because all your high messages from all over the world, from different time zones, from Nigeria to Ecuador, all over Europe. It's really, really nice. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks. Just keep on the great vibes. Also, good news is Marco. I see Marco also joined us, so that's gonna work. The third speaker is also here. Yes, let's bring Jonas to the stage, and thank you, Irene. Jonas, your slides. Let's bring them. Here we go. Okay, you can start.
Dozens believed dead after fire at New Year's party in Switzerland. Around 40 killed, 100 injured in explosion in Swiss ski resort bar. These were the headlines I saw when I started work on January 1st. During the night, a fire had broken out in a bar in the Swiss mountain village of Grand Montana. It's just a 4-hour train ride from where I live in Zurich. Faced with these deadlines, I wondered, what could I contribute? Hi, I'm Jonas, and I work as a visual and data journalist for the Swiss daily newspaper NZZ. I've been there for about 7 years, and this picture I took on my first day when I went there and sent it to my family because I was so proud. You know, NZZ is an institution in Switzerland. It is almost as old as the United States. So back to the headlines. We started to discuss with my colleagues, what should we show? Maybe we could show helicopter flights to neighboring countries because the intensive care units in Switzerland were already full. Or maybe we could compare this fire in Crans-Montana to other bar fire events from the past to see if it was a big event or just a normal event. As we discussed, more and more information came in as reporters started to interview eyewitnesses. Some mentioned 2 bars and some mentioned a stair. Some mentioned that there was just one exit, but another told us there was a second one. And I got quite confused. And after some time, I started to wonder, what did that bar even look like? Together with my OSINT colleagues from our OSINT team, we started to collect pictures from Google Street View and similar services like Mapillary to see the bar from the outside, to see where there were exits and so on. We went on TripAdvisor and Restaurant Guru to find old reviews and photos from the interior. We also found plans, official plans from the canton to get the dimensions of the bar. After a few hours of research, a first sketch emerged. With this first sketch, I went into Blender and started to model the whole bar. Meanwhile, my colleagues continued to research more and more details. After about 1 day, we could publish a first piece that showed the bar. The model was still pretty incomplete, but it was accurate in what it showed. We even identified the place where the fire broke out already at that point. And over the days that followed, more and more details became public and known, and we refined the whole model and did also a nicer design and published a second piece that was discussing important questions that were being discussed. For example, if the stairs was wide enough, we did our own estimate, or if there was a second exit and where it might have been. This was really not clear at the beginning. So these were the candidates, maybe in this second bar in the back or here in this second room. It's actually here, we found out in the end. So after we published this piece, a researcher from New Zealand wrote to us and asked us if we could use the model to do evacuation simulations. Naturally, we said yes and sent it to him and asked if he would collaborate with us. And so he did a model of an evacuation under ideal conditions. And as you can see, it would have taken about 2 minutes, even more than 2 minutes, to evacuate all of the people. This was very relevant because from other sources we found out that it took only 79 seconds, barely more than a minute, until a flashover happened. That means from the start of the fire, it took less than 2 minutes until the whole bar was ablaze. So for me, this became kind of a visual journalism best case scenario. First, it showed what people really, really wanted to see at that moment. Second, it told the story that was important mostly through visual means. And third, it was very concrete and relatable. With this model of Crans-Montana, no one in our newsroom thought it was about decoration or something. It was just a central part of our reporting. When I meet someone new and they find out that I'm a journalist or a visual journalist, their first question usually is, how do we find stories? And here you basically have the answer. As a visual journalist, you should always ask, what do I want to see? This question, generally, I have found out, leads you to the most valuable contributions you can make as a visual journalist. Some stories, if you ask this question, some stories are interesting and very fascinating. I get excited very quickly by great stories. But if you ask this question, there really nothing comes to mind. And these are stories typically that are best told as text. They don't have what we call visual potential. On the other hand, if you have an image directly, typically the story is very easy to tell and the concept is very clear. So today, I would like to share with you 4 lessons from 7 years of visual journalism. These are things that I would tell my younger self if I would meet him and to give him a head start in this whole profession. So the 4 lessons are, the first one you've already seen, ask, what do I want to see? The second lesson is called the visual is the story. The third one, concrete beats condensed. And the fourth one, don't be so clever. I will use examples to illustrate each of the points as we continue. So let's jump directly to lesson number 2. The visual is the story. On the morning of February 24th, 2022, Russia attacked Ukraine. They entered the country from, I think, 7 fronts with about 110,000 soldiers. As the war raged on, more and more the casualties mounted more and more, and as you all know, the war is still ongoing. After a few months in, we found independent war analyst Henry Schlottmann on X, and he had been a former intelligence analyst for the US military. And he wasn't doing that anymore, but still on the side, he was researching, he was trying to do estimates on how many Russian soldiers had fallen, like casualties, and doing estimates about that. So we asked him if he would like to collaborate with us, and his numbers, when we looked at his numbers, we came to a very sober conclusion, and it was that by November, basically all of the 110,000 men that entered Ukraine in February had been replaced. If you plot that, it looks like this. This chart is very clear, and it answers the question, what do I want to see? I mean, I want to see how the losses mount up and how new soldiers come in. But this chart is really inadequate because, after all, we're talking about thousands of people who are dying or who are wounded. In addition, there are multiple sub-stories that are easy to miss if you just look at this chart. For example, in April, you can see that many soldiers are moved out from the battlefield and many more are moved in. And this is basically, actually, they moved some soldiers out and moved them in again on other fronts because they had to change their initial strategy after 2 months. In September, you can also see a bigger inflow, like that's the more light green part on the top. So Russia put in even more soldiers into the battlefield. This was due to a partial mobilization of reservists that they called at this point. And you can see that in the estimates of Henry Schlottmann. So to address these points, we decided to make the chart the story. So as you can see, we tried to make it look more like a battlefield and more organic. So you would be reminded that these are people actually moving on the ground, moving in and moving out of the war. These graphics were very interesting to create. You can read about the process on my blog. It was fascinating process. But anyways, what's important about this is that the visual basically tells the story. The visual is the story. We don't need that much text, just some bits to contextualize and explain the charts. But let me show you another example to make that more clear what I mean. So in Zurich, as in all the big cities in the world, I guess, we have a problem, and it is that we don't have enough cheap apartments. So if you work in a job that doesn't pay so well, like for example, hairdresser, it's basically impossible to live in the city. To show that, my colleagues Simon scraped apartment listings during 3 months for Zurich, and that's what we show on this chart you see here. We place them where they were located, and the color indicates how many rooms the apartment listing has. That's the Swiss way of showing how big an apartment is. It goes between 1 and 5 and more. And you can select how much rent you would be able to pay. So if you're not paid very well, your options are very, very limited. The text that comes before this chart is very brief and basically just introduces the context and explains to you what you will be able to see in the interactive. So again, we put the visual at the center of the story. Also important to see here, we moved from an abstract representation, or we didn't want to use an abstract representation, but moved to a concrete representation that would remind you of like kind of apartment blocks. Which brings me to lesson number 3. Concrete beats condensed. After the nuclear accident at Fukushima in 2011, Switzerland, as many other nations, decided to get out of nuclear, but that doesn't happen overnight. So they made a plan on how to exit nuclear energy, on how to replace nuclear energy until 2050. The plan looks like that. So this is the energy mix of Switzerland. The lighter part is prognosis. You see a lot of energy comes from water, hydro energy. And you can see how the orange area, the nuclear power, is getting smaller and smaller as nuclear power plants get taken off grid, as according to the plan, and everything is replaced by solar power, basically. And the idea was that private people would install solar panels on their roofs and compensate for all the lost nuclear power. And I wondered, was this plan realistic? I mean, you see the numbers, you see something in terawatt hour, but I don't really know what a terawatt hour is. So I wondered, what I really wanted to see is what would a typical Swiss city look like if this plan is actually put into practice. So let's see. So with this 3D model, we put solar panels on roofs according to the plan. And you see at the end how the city Swiss city would look like in 2050. We used an actual 3D model of a Swiss city, which one doesn't matter, and put the solar panels, we placed the solar panels by hand according to the previous chart. And we didn't just place them anywhere because, for example, you wouldn't place a solar panel on a roof facing north, or if there is shadow, or you wouldn't place a solar panel on a church because it's a historic monument and you don't want to change how it looks. So I learned a lot about solar panels and how they're placed and what works and what doesn't. Anyways, but with this chart, I get an intuition and I look at this city and I see that it is probably feasible, but it is also very ambitious. That's what my gut tells me. And I don't need to trust some expert for this, but I can come to my own conclusion. So let's move on. No. So yeah, what's the problem about that? It goes against some data viz principle, which some of you might know, which was coined by Edward Tufte, who wanted us to reduce the data to ink ratio, to use as little space as possible to present as much information as possible. And this goes completely against this principle. But what I've learned over the years is that our problem is not really the eye. It's not about transmitting as much information as you can through the eye. Our problem is the mind. So what we're trying to do with these graphics is to reduce the mental load of our readers. And we always see that if we make it concrete, if we take up more space, instead of making it short and abstract, we can do that. Talking about mental load brings us to lesson number 4. Don't be so clever. You might have heard about the axis of resistance. This is a kind of loose coalition of rebel groups led by Iran. So part of it is Hamas or Hezbollah in the Middle East. Their main enemy is Israel and also the United States. But in the Middle East, there are many, many more actors active, for example, Turkey and so on. And sometimes it's difficult to understand who is actually related to whom in what way. So who is friendly towards whom and who is enemy. It's not very clear often. And what I really wanted to see here is kind of a map, an overview that shows me all the relations in the Middle East. So that's what we did. We created this interactive where you could click on one of the actors and it would show you how they're related to all the other actors in the Middle East. So orange is enemy, green is friendly, and yellow is my favorite. It's called frenemy. So I designed this cartogram. I decided against a network chart because these are 20 actors. And with 20 actors, you have probably around 200 relationships. So this would just have been another tangled mess, which we wanted to avoid from the beginning. So this cartogram is a map, which is kind of modified, but it's still topographically correct. So Turkey is in the north, Yemen in the south, Gaza is bordering Israel, and so on. That's the whole point. And I was really, really proud about my solution. And then I showed it to some people and no one understood it. They neither understood that it was a map, nor that it was an interactive. One person even said, there's already so much information. It never occurred to me to click on these actors to get more information. I was already served. So we went back to the drawing board and designed a whole introduction to this interactive that started with a regular map with some of the actors and showed the cartogram then and the different categories, explained what a frenemy was, and so on and so forth. We showed it to 3 other people, and this time everyone got it. But I have to tell you, it still took them some effort. So if I would redo this project, I probably would do it differently. I would probably stick with the regular map. And yeah, even as an information designer, I'm really into designing new forms. But yeah, that's just me being clever, right? So to summarize my 4 lessons from 7 years, here you get it. What do I want to see is the question that finds you a story. If you can answer it, the visual is the story. Concrete beats compact, so show what numbers represent. Don't show how clever you are, but help your readers understand. I hope that you can take away something interesting from these 4 lessons for your own practice, or maybe it was just entertaining to see a little bit behind the scenes into the daily struggles of a visual journalist. I thank you very much for your attention.
Danke, Jonas. Thank you, Jonas. Super. We are in time, and for everyone, I'm super surprised and super happy that there are so many questions in Slido. I'm even trying somehow to combine them so that we can try to answer them in a proper way. And now let's try. Marco, you can already try to prepare screen share. Jonas, thank you. Marco. So let's see. Marco, you can unmute. Jonas.
Sure, yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Super. Hi.
Thank you for having
Nice
me.
that it works. Yes.
We
Thank you
share
for
the screen
joining.
right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. You share your
All right.
screen, then you have 20 minutes, and then we have the discussion round.
Okay. I will put a timer. Just let me know if I'm over time because I'm very bad calculating times.
Okay, good. I will jump in. You will only hear me if I jump in with the video. So
Sure,
yeah,
yeah.
I will jump in.
So my
Cool.
name
So
is
you
Marco. Yeah, my name is Marco Hernandez. I'm a graphics editor here at the New York Times. My work involves illustration, 3D models, some coding, reporting out in the field. Um, I'm basically doing a little bit of everything. I don't have a particular area of expertise. I'm a generalist. That means I can be talking about the war, I can be talking about climate, or anything else reacting to the news. Um, I want to show you 4 projects very quickly. This one was the beginning of this year to cover the Artemis mission to the moon. So I did some lunar mapping. I have to learn cartography about the moon. I make maps often, but not about the moon. It's a little bit different. And we published quite a lot of pieces. Some of them video outputs only, some of them interactives, some of them 3D pieces, some other just print stuff. This is how my desk looked like on January this year. And I was meant to produce a 3D moon because I was in a meeting with a brief meeting with the NASA PR people, and they told me about this thing that astronauts will see about scale when they're flying by the moon. And they said that the moon will look for them about the size of a basketball arm's length. So I prepared a 3D model because I thought, well, this is a really good way to explain to readers how we can uh, compare what the astronauts are seeing. So this was the preparation for a 2-minute video. I started with this just first approach to lunar cartography, learning about the topography, the geological sites, all the name of the craters, just to orient myself. Then one of the challenge was to NASA provides a lot of material like this. This is a mapping of color of the moon, and this is an equirectangular projection. That means that I had to somehow translate this for a physical model into something like this. This is the output for gorges. Gorges are just these tiles that you grab around a 3D object, physical object, and that's all just to find a way to grab up around this thing, the moon. So I did some Python scripts to process all these gorges. The measurements had to be very accurate, so they at the end can grab up. So I was orienting myself, doing numberings, pointing up north. If you can see here that I'm numbering each of the tiles. This is the sequence number 9 for the first set of tiles. And then I'll just grab this thing. This is all about just preparation to bring out of the 3D printer the model and paint by hand. So I don't want this to be just some sort of approximation to the aspect of the moon. I wanted to be accurate, so I did quite a few versions of this one just to make this model look in the right way. This is version 1. I printed 3 of these moons. This is the farther right image is how it looks from the inside, which is, I think, really cool. But I was in constant looking for references for that model. One of the nicest things that I found on NASA was this animation, and it was showing how there are permanent shadows in the south pole of the moon. And I wanted to replicate this, but I found like there are a lot of references. This is not real footage, it's data. And they have actually a description of how to download all these tiles. I went on, downloaded all these tiles, and I got back this. Basically the same thing as in the video. As you know, for news, you cannot use this image with so many overlays. I was looking for actual data, so I embarked myself into a journey parallel to the 3D printing to get these tiles. So the nice thing about NASA is that they have all the descriptions where the data comes from. This one was actually quite well documented. So you have to take positions of the moon, the Earth, the sun, and other planets and things, just to get the shadows in the right way. I used some AI agents to help me map all these things because it's a lot of process. It's not just the first thing that you get out of the shadows. You need to reprocess, remap, and get all of this just to make this small animation. This is the first output, version 0. And it's not perfect, but I was almost there. So I went on some modifications and I was able to replicate NASA's animation with the same data that we're using. So I added at the end some overlays, and the gold areas here that you're looking is permanent shadow areas where you're always going to have this thing in the shadow. This is really important because turns out that when astronauts go there, they will be looking for eyes. So if they look for eyes, probably it's one of these inside of one of these craters where the sun never meets the eyes, so it's not melted. That means they probably will also set a permanent presence if in future they want to, or if they can't, they will look for one of these particular areas. So we did, with all of this, we did some 2 videos explaining the whole trip to the moon and the features the astronauts will see. We also did some sort of reaction. I was following live all the comments from the astronauts to see their photos and what they're actually describing. So this was a piece that we published as a breaking news. But we also did a bunch of different orders to explain all the rockets, all the things that NASA has to prepare in advance. And this was long planning because we have 1 story per stage. We divided the mission into 5 stages, and we published in advance all these things, and also like these quick reactions. So we also did some embeds for the live blog. I prepared all this in advance. Of course, I have a lot of information prepared just in case there's something went wrong. It was not the case, but yeah, it's a lot of planning and reporting, even before to get to the fun part of doing animations and graphics. For print, we don't actually spend too much time on print. I just share assets because our team has a high demand all the time. So we have a few people that we share assets with to prepare all the print pages. And anyway, there were several pieces on print as well. The second one I want to share is about the arch. I was looking at this structure that President Trump wanted to build on this platform. Arrowware can show you airpads, airplanes, aircraft all around the world anytime you want. And turns out that I was looking at this area just by curiosity, and I found like that they also have this historical data. So I downloaded a bunch of records from a few months, and this is how it looks on QGIS. But the nice and important thing is that over here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but you can see the arch is right in the middle of the traffic of all of this. You can also see these kind of circles all around. Those are helicopters flying around. You have restricted areas. This area is very difficult to navigate. It's one of the most restrictive areas in the US to fly by. So adding another structure, tall structure in the middle of the traffic where all the planes come and go, represented a challenge. So when I found this and I talked to my editors, they were very excited to produce a story. This is one of the pieces we published in that story. This is what the traffic nearby this airport. Also in 2025, there was a crash, an incident with a plane and a military helicopter. So these blue lines all around are just traffic for helicopters. So you can see how this pattern of traffic changed after the crash. But that will also maybe impacting if you build another structure there. Helicopters fly oftentimes visually. That means they don't use instruments, and maybe they will be blocked, or they have some issues with visibility if they have this 250 feet tall structure over there. So back to the spaghetti. When you look at these things by altitude, you see here red is low traffic, and yellow, almost blue here is super high. Yellow is a little bit taller, a little bit higher. So you may get the wrong impression here. So that's why we filter out first of all how to understand these maps with incoming and outgoing traffic. So some of these easy calculations on QGIS can actually provide you something like this. This is arrivals and departures. You see the traffic is a little bit different. And I did this just because if you can see here, maybe it's not quite visible, but the arch has particular obstruction, is on the way of departing airplanes. And that's because they're using this runway that is a little bit inclinated, runway 15. So that gave me a very good clue of what to filter and process the data looking for. So I also dig a little bit with buildings heights. All these colors that you see here in the back are buildings by altitude, by how tall they are. And the blue thing is just the traffic. You see planes do already this band curve behind the buildings because it's very tall. They follow the river basically. And they actually add these obstruction lights. All these red things are meant to prevent the pilot to go very low. And probably the arch, which probably is going to be about the size of one of these buildings, will not have these obstruction lights because it seems like the authorities don't want the arch, the sculpture on the top with blinking red light. So to preview that, I did the sketch very quickly to see how the traffic actually behaves or how high they go. And you may see that on a 3D perspective, the traffic oftentimes is quite high, but that's maybe not the important thing here. The important thing is that planes often needs a buffer zone, and helicopters actually fly under 500. So you have some of the helicopters flying right in the same area space where the arch is. This is how the final renderings are. And yeah, the story was very popular. I don't know, the administration went with some other technical approaches to build the arch anyway. So we probably will have the arch over there, and the airport will probably just take some precautions to divert traffic or reduce the weight on planes. So this new structure doesn't really cause any security risk. This is a story that I just published yesterday. And it was about synthetic cells. And I wanted to show you just because it was a quick turnaround. It was just 2 days production. And one thing that maybe no one noticed, but I hide anywhere in there, was that all in red in this story was actual footage from microscopes. And this purple bluish color is everything else that I made on a 3D model, just to provide some more context. So I started talking to the researchers over a afternoon. I did some sketches of the different stages of the cells. These cells are made of synthetic compounds, so they're not alive, but they behave like if they were alive. So I wanted to show our readers how these cells grow, divide, multiply, and eventually died or stop functioning. So my talk to the researchers was actually just to show my ugly sketches and just destroy them to get something a little bit better at the end. This is the published version. All of these are animations, but they were proven different stages to explain within a very dense story visually how these cells are being made and how they actually behave after their compound is made. One of the nicest thing is that in the past they used to take one cell and basically take out genes, editing the cell, and see when this cell stops functioning. But the approach of the scientists in this time was a little bit different. They came out with only 36 genes and put it all together to produce something out from scratch instead of editing, taking synthetic compounds and putting just 36 genes to work. And it seems like the cell is almost behaves like if it was alive. And the last one that I want to show you is the BQE. The BQE is a piece of structure that we have here in Brooklyn. This structure is kind of a mess because it's very old. It has more than 50 years. This cantilever section actually has a very big problem. Like many of these parts, they're falling apart. Basically, the concrete is falling. The city said a few years ago that it was not safe to use anymore. But the residents and the city just got stuck within proposals. No one wants to have a simple highway here replacing the cantilever. The city wants to build something functional, quick and easy, but the residents want mostly a different solution, maybe a park or a tunnel or something else. So we went there to do some reporting, and we found all these patches. The city has been installing all these structures to prevent the concrete to fall on top of cars or people. This is a photometry we did. We basically just walk around taking pictures and then put all this together into a 3D software to get a reconstruction of the entire structure. Actually, the thing is that all these meshes, the patches that the city has been installing, they don't prevent the deterioration of the structure. They actually just prevent pieces of concrete to fall on top of the people or on top of the cars. It's not a way to fix the structure. And they are all around the structure. They are everywhere. You can see in this picture, actually, some of these lines here is the trucks scratching the roof of the structure. So sometimes these meshes just go away with one of these big trucks. We drove around this structure up and down for a day, almost like, I think we did 8-9 times each line. And we rented a Tesla and attached this camera. The Tesla was just because the roof was clear, so we got a 360 perspective of the entire structure. Then we map each of these joints. You can see here on the right side, this red area is one of the joints. The joints are where most of the leaking salt and water is getting inside the structure, and that's what is causing the damage, actually. So basically, all these meshes align with joints, and the only way to solve this problem is basically tear down this structure and build something else. This is a map of every single mesh, every single patch that the city has installed. Colors are by different levels. And then we added that on top of a 3D model that we did. Each of these yellow things is the patch that the city has been installing in the last few years. And in the story, we wanted to show the proposals, city ideas, and neighborhoods ideas or architects' ideas. So I wanted to make this the visual language a little bit like everything you see on 3D models here is a real thing or footage. Sketches are just ideas that someone has proposed, either the city or maybe one of the neighbors. They want to build these parks, tunnels, or whatever. So the entire article goes around the many ideas, how difficult this project is, the solutions that they've been waiting there for years, and meanwhile the structure is still deteriorating. So it's a very dangerous area, actually. If you're driving in New York, I'll recommend not to drive through the cantilever in Brooklyn. I wanted to share with you all the links here. You can go and see all the stories. I think they have gift links. But also inside you will find some more resources, something about my work, some tools, things that I use all the time. So I invite you to scan this QR code, or just get in touch on social media. I'll be happy to talk to you if you have any questions. And I think that's it for me.
Super. You were just in time.
Cool.
Good job. Okay, so let's bring everyone to the stage. I hope everyone has, let's say, 20 more minutes for questions, which came from the audience. Actually, there were a lot. So I allowed myself to somehow try to bring them all together, or try to, I mean, the questions are directed to one speaker, but obviously, as you are all journalists working in amazing newspapers, they could be applied to each of you. So the questions will be, so the first one, so there are questions which are quite complex and big, but let's start with, maybe you can tell us something or more about your team, the size, and how you work together, how you're organized. Just as a first question. Who starts?
I can start. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I work with the visual storytelling team. That team is quite small. I mean, small, depending on the team, it might be big. We are 5-6 people. And then what we do is we collaborate quite a lot with the graphics team, with the data journalism team, with the daily news graphics team. So we bring people to the projects. but we are, I think we are 5, and then if there's if we need a technical illustration, we bring Ian Bott or Bob Haslett. If we need a map, we bring Jana, DT, or Steve. It's, and then, it's something like that.
And everybody on the same place, same kind of physical space, or?
Yeah, well, so the main newsroom is in London, and then there's people in New York, and then I'm also in Madrid. So there's a lot of online collaboration. There's also Haoshan in Hong Kong. And then there are many correspondents. So when we are producing a project about a specific area, there's a lot of conversations with them.
Cool.
Let's keep the order. So the NSET Visuals team, there are 28 people. We have 4 sub-teams. One is called Editorial Tech. They do all the interactive development. One team is the OSINT team, who do the deep dive researches. And then we have data journalists, and I'm part of the graphics team, which is 8 people. And I mean, we have these teams, but in a way it's very fluid. So I'm kind of often doing data work, or sometimes also doing some basic OSINT. So we learn from each other, and the borders get blurred.
And all in Zurich, right? In the building.
We have we have some people in Berlin and Munich also, but most in Zurich.
Cool. So graphics at the Times is almost like another section. We produce our own stories. We do the reporting, the graphics, the coding, like everything that I show you is our work, the daily work. We are about 60, 65, I think. Most of us are here in New York, but we also have offices in London, Seoul, Washington, and San Francisco for graphics. There are some more reporters in other bureaus, including Hong Kong and other places. But the collaboration within the team is very fluid. Even though we produce our own stories, we also collaborate quite closely when there is a special occasion with one of the desks. So depending on the expertise that this story will need, we gather smaller things. We have units within graphics. Some of us have more expertise with cartography or 3D stories or coding or you name it, something different. That very a lot of different specialities. So actually, I'm kind of the outlier. I'm like the only person that jumps from one thing to another, just because I really enjoy to be doing something different all the time.
Lucky you. Cool. Super. Okay, let's then jump to the process. So there were different aspects in the questions regarding process or how you work, but kind of the one question that stuck out was the first step in the process, which is kind of when it comes to ideas, or kind of the first one was, is it first the data or is the first story? So data first or story first. The second is, do you do idea pitching? So kind of who does pitch the ideas? Where does it come from? And obviously, if there is an idea, that's the third part of the question. How do you convince, somebody said, how do you convince your boss to allow you time-wise, kind of budget and money-wise, to work so long and so deep in research on a topic? So who would like to, one part of these questions, answer these questions? Ladies first, do we keep that?
Sure, yes, we can keep the same.
Come on, let's always keep the loop.
It's hard to answer because it depends on the project. Sometimes the idea comes from a conversation, just like a random conversation that you have. And then from there, you kind of research a bit, and then you pitch the idea. Some other times it comes from the desk. They have an idea, or they want to write an article, and they go to the visual storytelling editor, and that's how it comes to be. But it really depends. Just the idea, not really the visual aspect of it. It depends on the story. Sometimes it comes from us, sometimes it comes from other people. Sometimes it's about reacting to whatever is happening, and there's no question that you just need to kind of produce something and explain whatever has happened.
Do you need to calculate the hours? Do you have to tell your, okay, that's a good idea, I would need 2 days to work on that? Or kind of, is there like this?
I'm very, I don't know if luck is the question, is the word. I don't usually work on day-to-day, like breaking news stuff. Our projects tend to be medium long term. So sometimes it takes 4 months on and off. Some other times it might be a month. Sometimes it's just 1 week. It's true that this year specifically, I think the rhythm is becoming faster just in general, but this year I've noticed it a lot.
Mm-hmm. But everything gets faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Okay. Well, just one question, last question here. Do you, because that was asked, do you accept pitch ideas for stories from outside?
From outside the FT, you mean?
Outside the newspaper. So kind of public people write you, oh, that would be great.
Yeah, sometimes people write emails and they trigger questions, right? I think it's just like about bringing the right question to the right people. Sometimes we do collaboration with other organizations like Global Fishing Watch, or but that doesn't really happen that often. That is kind of an outlier, I would say.
Okay, good. Thanks. Jonas?
I think for people who have not worked in newsrooms, probably don't realize how chaotic the whole machinery is, and like how ad hoc sometimes things are. So I think maybe one of the best examples is when there's a real breaking news situation. It feels like surfing. It's like it becomes really clear what you need to do, and everyone is just helping you to like stay on top and do your story, because everyone is just knows that this is now the thing that needs to happen. And I think it's really about what stories need to happen if people see that this is something that needs to be told, and then it's off you go and you do it. But I mean, sometimes it takes a long time, and then it's a question of how long do you have until the story gets too old. So often that's your limiting factor, and not this is too much money or something like that, like in regular client work.
And the ideas come just from the team, random.
So it's both, and often it's kind of obvious, or it's sometimes it's from the team, sometimes some of the reporters, they come to us and they tell us about some news story we have missed, and we think, yeah, that's a great idea, we absolutely need to do it. That's how it often goes. We have like one person that is there just to do like the small stuff, to keep everyone else off that, and someone needs just this quick graphic, and that we have. So where it's just really serving the newsroom.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Marco?
I kind of resonate with Jonas. We oftentimes just react to whatever's in the news. We pitch our own stories. We have collaborations. There's never the same. We have collaborations with different teams. But stories can come. I mean, I've been walking on the street and see something, and you think, well, this is something that we actually can do a story about. Or maybe it's one editor that comes to you and I got this idea. Let's work on this. Or maybe it's something that comes very high up. Someone in management sent us this. But to be honest, also the Times has this tips section where any person from the outside can send us a clue about something that is happening, and we take that very seriously. Actually, we have a team dedicated only to that. I don't know how many there are, but they have to deal with a lot of information proposals from general public. So yeah, but in my case, probably I'll also work very closely with researchers and people that are producing all the time. That's how we ended up doing this spot cells. So it's just being there in the radar, looking for what's going on, and do the reporting and talking, I guess.
Cool. And now in the process, I saw that you obviously in the beginning you start sketching, right? So so one question was directed like, do you do analog sketching or digital sketching, or how important is the sketch in the process, in the idea creation process, or maybe in the clarification process that you clarify, okay, what direction are we going, until you go deeper and deeper. So kind of what in this kind of case of the next step of the process question, kind of the sketches, digital, analog, and also the maybe connected question. Another question is, when do you decide on the style and on the design? So kind of when does the design process, design questions come in? So of color, typography, beauty, contrast, and so on.
I can start. I've been trying more and more to start just like doing sketches. It helps me not feel attached to whatever I'm doing to start, but it also helps other people feel like this is not something that is decided. It's something that can change. So what I do is I sketch in my notebook, take photos, put it in FigJam, and then from there, try kind of very, very rough wireframes of what we want to do. Once we decide more or less the structure, and that might change, but like once we decide that, then it's when I start doing the visual style, like more pixel perfect, let's say, elements. I try to start doing like working just on mobile because everything looks really nice on desktop and then it gets destroyed for mobile phones. And then for the palettes and colors, etc., it's a combination. I tend to start with the branding colors. So for example, the Baltic story actually had many of the Financial Times colors. That hot pink came from there. We keep using that yellow because it works really well. And then make changes depending on the theme of the project, because if the story is about human rights, for example, and like people who are working on fishing boats and who are seeing their human rights kind of being completely ignored, you cannot use a very bright, funny, warm color, right? So there has to be a link between the story and whatever style you're using. That's for visual stories. For normal articles with many graphics, we have a specific styles and colors, and we don't really change that much.
Cool. Understood.
It's almost exactly the same. Irene has said everything. Maybe just one thing. The sketches are super important, I think, because I don't know. I think there are people who are just much less visual than people who work in on a graphics team in a newspaper, and they often really don't know what you think or what you imagine. So you have to sketch it out. And if I talk to my graphics colleagues, they instantly know what I'm talking about. But other journalists who I would collaborate with, like the sketches Marcos showed, these are essential, because otherwise they will write the text and have no clue like what the graphics will look like, and it will not fit together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love sketches. I mean, it's part of my work is sometimes just do sketches. I found like the medium, if I'm trying to iterate through my own ideas, paper is good. To explain something very quickly to someone, I oftentimes just go to Photoshop and grab one of the brushes. I get my own like set of brushes to do this, just because to explain something to a researcher, for instance, the style has to be sketching of almost very badly made, so they understand this is just a draft. That's also one thing that I add all the time. I add these huge letters all the time. This is draft only. Because oftentimes they take like, oh, this is not right, it's not perfect, but I'm just trying to give them a visual clue of what's the thing that I wanted to explain. But for like, I really love doing sketches, but I spend probably 80% of my time just talking to people, trying to understand what's the story about, how can I process this data, and then yeah, I have found that probably 10% rest of the time doing the sketches and final bit just producing. So yeah, sad but true.
But what we take is actually, and that is super, I think, for the whole discipline, it's not just for journalism, that sketching is kind of getting people understand and talk to each other. Like, what is the whole thing about? And that they have to look as a draft. They should be perfect. Cool. So let's just go to the last kind of two aspects, let's say questions. The first that goes in the direction that what is your experience with like digital interactive work? So kind of does it work better than static images, be it in print or digital, but kind of the one is interacting, showing the animation as Jonas has shown, or the other one is like a static. Is there something to say about that, if one is better than the other, or it needs both? And the obvious and kind of the most upvoted question, but I kept it for the end because it's always returning in every session, is what technology did you use? So are there kind of open source things, 3D open source tools, libraries? Are there any kind of hints, recommendations in this today's super fast technology changing world? But anyways, maybe you have your perspective on that. Let's keep the loop.
I wonder if Marco wants to kind of chip in first, because
Okay,
he has.
good. Let's change it.
Yeah,
For the-
can break the order here. I'm gonna be very brief because I really have to go now. I have a story that I'm closing for tomorrow. But regarding technology, that QR code that I show at the end of my slides is a very descriptive set of tools, sources, and things that we use all the time here. Some of them are my favorites. My days go around Adobe, of course, Blender. I love that. Cinema 4D. Those things are kind of the core for me. For coding purposes, I guess Python is built. All our components here at the New York Times are built on Svelte. So we use, actually there is not a manual for how to do things. Everyone uses whatever they can, whatever they want, and that makes actually things being more creative. Sometimes I have this approach with Cinema 4D or Blender, and someone else can come and do something else with Maya or Houdini or something else that is quite interesting. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. Lovely to meet you, Jonas and Irene. I hope I can see you later. Derjan, thank you very much for having me here. I really need to go, but thank
Good.
you.
Thank you being here. Thank you, Marco. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. What was the question about interactives?
Yes, if kind of interactive or static, and then kind of technology used.
This is the horrible answer. It depends, right? Not everything needs to be an interactive, but some things need to be. So, yeah, there is no real rule. But I mean, what we see, when I started, we had this old saying from Archie from New York Times: interactives don't work, people don't click them. I think that's not true anymore. So there was a change. For tools, it's similar to Marco, but I would chip in for Figma. I'm a big fan of Figma because you can also script it, and I do a lot of static work, but also like preparation for interactive work in Figma.
Okay, interesting.
I'm with Jonas. It really depends. I think dynamic components work really well, but they have to have a purpose. Like you cannot just do something and add tons of buttons if they don't make any sense. Yeah, we are playing quite a lot with static but dynamic elements, and I think the scrollies are so popular because they feel dynamic, although they are quite static. They are fixed. They do whatever you want. And we are playing quite a lot with AI to HTML, which is this script, this for Illustrator, where you can export different parts of a graphic as a PNG, SVG, and you can have different artboards with different sizes, and they resize automatically. So we are kind of making them dynamic, although they are static. I don't know, it's fun. For tools, Figma for prototyping, Illustrator is still a very big and important tool for producing graphics. QGIS for maps, for code. I think it really depends. The ones that I know of, the 3ES for 3D graph kind of things that move around. There is more wizardry from my colleagues that I have no idea about. Mapbox, Blender. For scientific illustrations, I know that my colleagues use ShapeR, I think it's called, ShapeR 3D, and they say that it's easier than Blender. Yeah, but I think it depends on the project, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe one more thing. It's I sometimes say we're the people who need to know all the tools somehow, because it's just one tool after the other. It's sometimes a bit exhausting.
Jonas, it was also the question with kind of what did you do the fire, the Montaña 3D programming?
That was Blender.
Simulation. Blender?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, I have a question. Did you move them also in Blender? The people moving that was also created in Blender?
No, that wasn't us. We gave them the model to the researcher, and he did this animation, and we just made some small modifications to the animation. So I think he has some specialized software.
It's really cool anyway.
It is.
Super. Okay, so the speakers, please stay with me. I'm just turning off the live stream. So we're saying thank you and goodbye to everyone, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.